Now, let's continue. I'm going to set the font weight to normal. So font weight is going to be normal. So this will basically unbold our headline because headline elements are bold by default. And then I'm going to set the line height to 0.8 ems. Now, the line height property determines the amount of space between each line of text. This is more important in paragraph text, and actually it's more apparent in paragraph text, but we want to adjust the spacing here as well. Again, we're using relative ems as the unit here. Now, let's style our second level headline, and I'm going to type out the code and then explain it after I'm done typing. So font size is going to be 0.75 ems. The margin is going to be -5 pixels, 0, and then 0. So we're using 3 values there. And then the font weight is going to be normal. So what does all this mean? Well, the font size and font weight should be familiar to you. The font weight being set to normal will basically unbold our text like we just did previously, and we'll see what that looks like in a moment. And then the font size is set to 0.75 ems, so that will make the font size actually pretty small because remember this is a multiplier. But the new thing I've done here is set a negative margin, and I've also set 3 values for the margin instead of 2 like we've been using previously. The first value here sets the top. The second value sets the left and right, and the third value sets the bottom. In other words, this element only has margins applied to the top. This negative value that we're applying to the top will actually pull the element closer to the other elements around it, rather than pushing it away. This is a common technique when you want elements to be tighter together, especially when you're styling typography. We're going to do more styling throughout, but let's finish up some more font-related stuff. So I'm going to save that out, and up here, I'm going to select the body element once again. So let's come up to the top here and select our body again. And we've already selected our body down in our colors, but I want this to be separate from our colors and easy to read, so we're going to create a second body selector here. And we're going to apply the other font we picked out, which is Open Sans, and we're going to fall back to Sans Serif if for some reason Open Sans isn't available. This will set everything on the site to use Open Sans because we're applying it to the body, with the exception of our first level headline, which has another font applied to it and is more specific than the body, so it will be overridden for that one element. This is a good example of how cascading in CSS works. To wrap this up, we're going to style the navigation section and the footer. We're not going to use any new properties or techniques. Instead, I want you to try and follow along and understand what we're doing. So let's go ahead and create a new section here by copying our multi-line comment. And let's scroll down here, and I'm going to put a new multi-line comment just after our H2 there, and I'm going to call this navigation. And then I'm going to select our nav element here. And we already have a selector for this, but again, that's selecting colors, and I want to keep that separate in this particular project, but you could put them together if you'd like. I'm going to align the text center in our nav. I'm going to set some padding on the top and bottom to 10 pixels and 0 on the left and right. And then I'm going to apply some margin to the top, but I want everything else to be 0 for our navigation. Now, I'm going to select this multi-line comment once again, and just after our navigation here, I'm going to create a new one for the footer. And I'm going to select our footer, and then we're going to create some declarations inside of our rule here. So we're going to set the font size to 0.75 ems. So the font in our footer will be relatively small. We're going to set the text alignment to be center once again. We're going to set the padding on the top to 50 pixels. So we are actually using a new property here, padding top, which is just another way of specifying that we only want padding on the top. And then finally, we're going to set the color to this very light gray color here. So let's go ahead and save this and refresh the page to see how this looks. If I resize the browser window here, it will cut off our images, and we'll fix that later on. But you can start to see our mobile website coming together. We have our footer here, and we have the header up at the top. There's still some spacing issues here and a lot of alignment issues, and like I said, the images are still entirely too large. There's a few problems here, but we're going to fix all of those things. The more you practice with fonts and typography properties in CSS, the better you'll get. It's important that you play with these as much as you can because good typography skills will help you a lot when building any web page. After a quick assessment, we'll style our portfolio.